used to. So now it is saying this Hangout on air is live. Welcome to Tint, the premier free culture sports podcast. Last week I said the premier free culture podcast twice, both at the beginning and the end, and I don't know that that's true. It might be true, but I kind of doubt it. I do other free culture podcasts, and I would say actually that they are more prominent than this one because they've been going for 3+ years longer than this one. So we have what feels like a special guest at this point, but one of the originals of the show. We have Evan back after a long hiatus. How are you, Evan?
I'm doing well. It's been a while. Busy times. Finally got some time to come back and join you.
Yeah, and it worked out well with the end of the Olympics and the end of the gridiron season. So we got Rhino in for gridiron season, and then Wendy and I took a couple shows during the Olympics. I wanted to ask you if you had any thoughts on the Olympics before we got in. The only thing that had not finished were the closing ceremonies, which we can talk about if you want, but I don't have any particular interest in talking about, and the gold medal men's hockey game. I think those were the only two things that were not discussed last week when Wendy and I did the show. I don't think you're much of a hockey fan. You would think I would know if you were.
Well, honestly, I don't care too much for the Winter Olympics. I think some of the most fascinating stuff is the speed skating, and for some reason I enjoy curling. I don't know why. Probably because it's just so strange to have brooms on the ice sweeping, to get a stone in a target. I didn't get to watch too much of it. So I followed the the medal counts and the hockey just to see how the U.S. was doing, but that's about all I was able to pay attention to.
Yeah, and it's hard to see the games. Well, for me, I don't like watching stuff that's not live, and I got to see some of the gold medal game live, which was Canada versus Sweden, and Canada beat the snot out of them. And I'm not convinced that the U.S. and Canada were not the two best teams in the tournament, even though the U.S. just did not show up in the bronze medal game.
After that, they did not. They went home mentally after that.
Yeah, I think they did. So, yeah. So one thing before we sort of jump into the meat, we were hoping to be able to have calls, and we're going to have to make a decision at Tent Towers here. Do we want to take calls, or do we want them to go straight to the Sportazine page? Because it looks like YouTube/Google does not allow you to take calls from a page. You would think that it would be pages that would be the most likely to want to take calls, but it's only individual accounts that can take calls at this point. So maybe Uber has a thing where I haven't read their licensing agreement, which is a bad thing to say as someone that will have a JD in a couple months. But I assumed Google was not going to sell us out too badly. And maybe that's how they get payment, because Uber is a free service, so there's somewhere they're making money. So maybe I'll look into that at some point. But at least right now, we can't take calls if we're on the Sportazine page. So if you are a listener and you would really love to call in, please let us know, and I can do what I used to do and have these go straight to my YouTube page. But I think it's more appropriate for them to go to the Sportazine page if that makes sense for everybody. So, so I wanted to start off talking about the MLS a little bit. The MLS season starts on March 8th, so it starts 1 week from today. I know you are traditionally not much of an MLS fan, but I think the MLS has made a lot of big moves this year in the offseason. And I guess the first thing I'm wondering is, do you think that's going to bring more people to watch the MLS and care about? I mean, it's going to be hard to watch for some people, but to at least care about and follow the MLS? Or do you think it's still pretty far down the ladder of U.S. professional sports?
Well, I still think it's pretty far down the ladder. Listening to other podcasts and things, they always talk about the Big Four, even though the MLS has grown in popularity and has better stadium seat sales than some of the other sports. It's still kind of not mentioned at all. as being a professional sport in the United States, which is kind of strange to me. But I do think, the more that the traditional soccer fan or football fan who watches football or follows it across the season in Europe, as more of those players come over, um, the Jermaine Defoes, those types of players that I've invested in or other people have invested in, they want to see how they do in the MLS. They're going to expect them to perform well and show up and see if they do that in the MLS. And I think that, if you get these big guys in there and you expect them to score a lot of goals, all of the talk about some of the forwards coming over expecting to score 15 to 20 goals in the MLS, if they start not performing, I almost think that's going to make the MLS look stronger as the leagues. You're thinking, oh, these big guys, they've been performing in Serie A, but they get to the MLS and they end up not scoring. Maybe the MLS is tougher than we thought.
When it did take both Henry and Beckham a while to adjust to the league, and Henry recently came out and said, hey guys, this is a tough league. And, a lot of people made a lot of noise about, he's saying it's a really good league. And I did you hear the comments or read the comments from Henry about the MLS?
No, I did not get a chance to.
So, basically, he was saying, and I don't have the quote in front of me, but he was saying things like, there's a lot of travel. It really wears you down. You're playing in Texas in the summer, and it's ridiculous.
Mm-hmm.
Which, is to say it's not a cakewalk, and I think that is a good message to send to European-based players. But at the same time, who cares? They could make the games 180 minutes long, and that would make it a tough league too, physically. But that doesn't mean that it's a good league. So I know Henry was defending the MLS, and I don't begrudge him. I don't think it was meant to be a backhanded compliment. But some of these people that are really taking Henry's comments and saying, oh, the MLS is this great league. It's really not. I mean, I love it because it's here, and I support it wholeheartedly. But the fact of the matter is that at this point, players are coming over when they're either very young from Uruguay. There's some league stars like Fagundes in New England that maybe they would have gone to Brazil or maybe they would have gone to Portugal or something in the past. And there's people that are coming at the end of their careers, like the Beckhams and the Henrys. Then you have people like Michael Bradley. I mean, I think Defoe probably fits into the end of the career stage. I don't actually know how old he is, though. That's something I can look up right here. Clearly, though, a person...
I think he's in his late 20s.
No, he's 31.
Oh, he's 31. Okay,
and he'll be 32 during the MLS season. So I mean, it's better than 35. But who knows how much gas he's got left in the tank. And I think it's great that he's here. I think it's great exposure for the league. But let's be honest, we need guys coming over. If the MLS is serious about being one of the best leagues in the world, we need people coming when they're 26, 27, 28. Now, one of those players that is that age is Michael Bradley, and I discount him coming back just a little bit, just like Clint Dempsey, even though Clint Dempsey's older, because they're American. Now, that doesn't mean they're not great players. That doesn't mean it's not important for the league. But it's not a hard sell to say, why don't you come back home and you not have to deal with, the travel for international matches and, growing up in a different culture with your kids if you have kids. I think that was the big thing for Clint Dempsey, although I'm sure that the dollar signs didn't hurt. And playing time, I mean, he wasn't getting a lot of playing time at Tottenham either. So, and it's interesting. I mean, Defoe came over from Tottenham. That's like coming like a pipeline of some sort. I don't know, but maybe Brad Friedel will be back. Although I suspect his playing days are done after this year. I don't know. Has he announced like a formal retirement or anything?
I didn't hear about it, but that doesn't mean that it didn't happen.
I noticed that he was not playing in the Europa League match that Tottenham had on Thursday. I'm at work, generally speaking, on Thursday during Europa League matches, and I turn them on and sort of listen to them, and they're in Spanish, and I don't know Spanish, but I can tell when they're getting excited, and thus maybe I should click over and see if there's a goal about to be scored or if a goal was just scored. Although if there was a goal just scored, that's pretty obviously. The long goal chant is something it's pretty obvious. But and there are some things that I know. I know very well, like dos a cero, what that means, for example, after that seems to be the way that the U.S. always beats Mexico in Columbus, for example. So here and there I hear some things, but I don't speak Spanish, just in case anybody's clear about that. So we do have a fantasy league, and I wanted to mention that. Well, I say we have a fantasy league. I created a fantasy league, and I am the only person to have joined. So Wendy is going to join because I'm going to make her join, and I'll probably have to manage her team. But whatever, she'll have a team. We're doing something different. I hope it's more fun for people. This league is going to be a head-to-head league. So I know a lot of people that play Fantasy Gridiron. They play the head-to-head leagues.
Yeah.
And so this is going to be something similar. Now, it's going to be, I think, probably more time commitment if you want to win than the Gridiron season, because instead of being 16 games in a regular season, there are, I actually don't know how many because the MLS doesn't have a balanced schedule, but there are 19 teams in the MLS, so they're playing 30-some-odd games. So there's more games to deal with. But anyway,
I'm always a fan of the head-to-head.
Yeah, so I was hoping that would interest people, but people need to join, or there's not going to be a league if people don't join. So the only other thing I wanted to say about MLS was if you're looking to catch a game, there are 2 games tonight that are free online and legal. The final of the Carolina Challenge Cup in Charleston, South Carolina, you can watch it on dcunited.com/live. I don't remember. I think they're playing the Sounders. I don't have that in front of me, though. And then the Disney Cup Challenge is also tonight on ESPN3. I believe that game is at 8 p.m., and the DC United game is at 5 p.m. So if you want to check out some MLS action, you can certainly do that. At some other point, we'll talk more about the potential YouTube broadcasting deal that the MLS has had, but we probably need to actually... I'm looking at my times, and I have confused myself with my numbering system. These are... oh, no, that's right, yeah. So I've confused myself again. I re-confused myself. Anyway, we're running behind, so we're going to move on to the EPL. There's a lot of EPL to cover because Rhino and I never talked about it. So basically, we haven't talked about the EPL season since... I think the last time you were on, which was in September, I don't know if I put that in here, but I believe it was late September was the last time you were on. So a lot of things have happened since then.
Yes, a whole lot. I don't know. This EPL season, I don't know if it's the teams are at the top are a lot better, or if they're all just more even. But it's been a lot of fun to watch this season, as it has been in other years when teams run away with it, like Bayern Munich's doing in Germany right now. That doesn't build for good entertainment if one team's running away.
Or last year, Manchester United won the league by 11 points, and this year they are down in 6th place. Count here, 6th place, but they're in there by 15 points. So basically a 27. Wait, no, I can't add. A 26-point difference from where they were last year. At the end of the season, I don't think they were quite that far ahead this early in the season. But United still just 5 points behind Tottenham for the Europa League spot. That Europa League spot, maybe it's a curse, maybe it's not. I don't know. My personal opinion is that I think for Manchester United in this season, it would be good for them to get to the Europa League. Mostly just because that means they're playing better at the end of the year, and I think ending the year on a good note would be good. And I think, the Europa League thing, they've got enough players in there, like young players that are on loan and such, that they can field enough people for the Europa League. And if they want to not play their best players in the Europa League, I think they can still. There's enough talent to where they could still give the Europa League a good run. But one team that is not having to deal with any sort of European competition is Liverpool.
Yes.
And you had suggested in the summer that not having European football would be good for them. Now, it's impossible to, test the counterfactual, what would have happened had they been in Europe. But given what you've seen the other teams do and where Liverpool is in the table, do you think that prediction has borne out?
I think so. I'm looking at what Liverpool's put together with their roster, their current starting 11, and their reserves to see how deep they are compared to some of these other teams. And the one like Man City still playing in Champions League, they got some talent, they've got some depth. Also seen some from Chelsea and Arsenal, just players they can bring off the bench. Liverpool doesn't really have that this season. They have been dealing with injuries. Agger's been out. Lucas has been out. Their holding midfielder, which I thought that was going to be a big hit, but Jordan Henderson's been playing out of his mind the past few games. So their depth would have been an issue had they have had more matches. And I think that was evident in some of their earlier cup games when they could field teams that had some young players that didn't have much experience. But I do think that you'll see the same 10, 11, 12, 13 guys starting matches at this point, and that consistency and their rest from week to week has put together a good team.
Nice. So I would like to move on to the Champions League, unless you have, and I guess Europe in general, have any more that you would like to say about the EPL season.
Not too much. Just sad to see Fulham at the bottom. But just because they're at the bottom, they could win a game, tie a game, and be in like 15th place.
Yeah, I think they were saying that on Men in Blazers, that they're only, a win and a draw, and they're out of the relegation zone. So it's pretty close, pretty tight down there, just like at the top. So I don't have a lot to say about the Champions League. Pellegrini has been suspended for his comments criticizing the ref in the Barcelona match. There's been a lot of lopsided games. PSG 4-0 over Leverkusen. Madrid over Schalke 6-1. And the Dortmund match ended up not being that lopsided, as it's 4-2. But lots of teams being blanked. City blanked. Milan blanked. Arsenal blanked. United blanked. I gotta think. Even though they look like a team that just cannot put it together. I watched the Crystal Palace game that was on TV here in the U.S., and they did not look good. They won 2-0, but one of those was a penalty. And, they really didn't look bad, but Crystal Palace is a team with the amount of talent that they have. They should really just be crushing them. But possession-wise, they've been holding the ball a lot. It's like Moyes is trying to turn them into Barcelona, but they don't have a team designed for that, and I don't think they have a manager designed for that. I haven't seen enough of the games to really comment a whole lot, but it just, when I have seen them and when I've seen the passing statistics, it looks like Moyes is not necessarily doing what he did at Everton, and I guess there's different players, so it kind of makes sense, but it seems a little discombobulated. Mm-hmm. I don't know if you have any comments on any of those games that I mentioned. they're all still well, they're not all in the balance. I mean, I'd say the PSG and the Madrid ones are. Those are not going to flip. All the other ones theoretically could. You have to say Arsenal Bayern looks like a pretty tough ask. But aside from that, I mean, even City Barcelona, you could see all of these flipping potentially, or I can anyway.
Yeah, there's only one draw, the Chelsea Galatasaray game, and I'm not sure who was home and away the first leg. Based off what I think it was, it looks like Chelsea was at home, but it's hard to tell.
No, it was at the Turk Kelcom Arena.
Yeah, okay, so Chelsea is going to be home at Stamford Bridge for that. Second leg, I would think that they would pull that out. But it looks like the other English sides are in trouble.
Yeah. So I wanted to ask very briefly about Chapel Hill and how they're what you think they're going to be able to do coming in March. Now, I didn't look this morning at the latest game, but they were, last time I looked, the winners of 10 straight. So, I mean, they're on a run at the right time, but do they have enough gas in the tank to, get them to, say, a Final Four?
I don't know. I think it all depends on matchups for this team. As you can, if you watch some of their games, there's certain players that give them matchup issues and can put UNC in foul trouble. If they draw a team like Kansas, they're always going to lose to Kansas no matter what.
That's psychological, is it not?
I think so. I think Roy just forgets how to coach when he goes up against Kansas.
He could just get sick or something and let somebody else coach the team.
Yeah, it's crazy. But I was looking. They're projected right now as about a 5 seed. I think they could put it together and put a good run. They've shown their grit. They came back against State, down 6 with like a minute and a half left in overtime. Maybe got some help with the refs. Who knows? They were able to hold it out against Duke. They haven't really been blown out much this season. Only like one loss that was more than 10 points, maybe 2. So they've been able to hold it tight with every competition, beat different kinds of teams. I think they could put together a good run. I just think it depends on the matchups.
Cool. So that is all that we have for today. I wanted to. I need to probably put together like a little blurb at the end, so I don't have to just say something about this every time. But I just wanted to mention to everybody that if you want to get involved in Sportazine, we're always looking for authors, and we're always looking for people to get involved in the show. And the call-in thing doesn't look like it's probably going to work, but it's as easy as me, knowing your name on Google Plus and adding you to the call if you want to come on. It's not a huge time commitment. We try to shoot for about 20 minutes every other week, and every once in a while people have things they have to do. And so, Evan or I can't necessarily be there. So if we can get more people involved, it makes life easier for everybody. And when we have guests on, it's usually fun to have some back and forth. Even if it does make it a little harder to stay in the 20-minute sort of area as far as time. So, do you have anything else, Evan, that you want to add before I wrap it up?
No, I'd say it's a pretty good show. Pretty good show.
All right, fantastic. We will be back on March 15th. We'll do this live thing again, and unless something comes up, we'll do it at 10 a.m. U.S. Eastern again. Hopefully that's early enough in the day for Europeans to tune in if they want to and to get involved. But for now, this has been Tint, the premier free culture sports podcast. And somewhere there is a stop broadcast. It was